If you're like me, you spend a lot of time procrastinating editing your latest videos, and you do that procrastination by scrolling through TikTok. But when you're on TikTok, you'll see some videos of people putting red fuel in their trucks. And then on those videos, you'll see comments of people saying that that red fuel is bad for those trucks. And that got me thinking, what is red diesel? Where does it come from? Why does it exist? And is it bad for your truck? So let's get into it. So the reason that red dyed fuel or red diesel fuel exists is actually really simple, just taxes. All fuels are taxed as part of a fuel tax that occurs at the point of sale. Most countries in the world enforce a fuel tax of some kind because, there's not already enough taxes crushing down on citizens as governments get more power hungry and careless with their spending. State and local taxes are factored into the price that you paid for clear diesel at the pump, which is supposed to be allocated for building, repairing, and maintaining your state or country's roadways. Income tax, property tax, vehicle tax, registration based on vehicle, and all those other insane taxes aren't enough apparently, and it's almost like the government has no incentive to run efficiently since they're funded by stolen money from citizens. Anyways, with that in mind, red diesel exists for the purpose of non-road use. More specifically, red diesel is created for agricultural use, railways, boats, trains, planes, generators, tractors, heaters. Basically, if you have a diesel engine in a vehicle of some sort that won't be used on the road, you can use red diesel. And since it's taxed much differently, it's actually much cheaper than standard diesel. I do want to say right here off the bat, red dyed diesel is functionally and chemically identical to standard diesel that you find at any gas station in the US. They're both an ultra low sulfur diesel, which is what modern diesel fuel is. Now, the only difference between standard diesel and red diesel is the red dye that is used in it. You might be wondering, why do they bother dyeing it? And they do this to check who's using this fuel and who isn't. You have to remember, it's being taxed less and it costs you less, and there's no barrier to entry to get this cheaper fuel. Of course, it's not at all gas stations. In fact, it can be hard to find depending where you live, but you'll typically find it in very rural areas or very small towns where there's a lot of farming or industrial type of work going on, where their equipment can use this fuel. Back to what I was saying, the reason it's dyed red is so that they can catch people using it illegally. Because there's no barrier to entry and you can pump it yourself at the gas stations that have it, there's obviously an incentive to cheat the system and get the cheaper fuel to save yourself money. The problem is when your tank gets dipped, which is when it's checked by some sort of government worker. If they find red diesel and you're on the road, you can face some pretty big fines. Funny enough, red diesel actually can be used on the road in the form of road building equipment, but not on the road as in driving on the road. The penalties for running red diesel in road applications vary from country to country, and it varies by the state level in the US as well. For reference, where I am right now in Arizona, the fine for illegally using red diesel is a minimum of $1,000 or $10 per gallon, depending which is more. Multiple offenses can quickly result in even heavier fines or criminal charges. Typically, when checking for illegal red diesel, they'll start at your fuel tank and they'll take a small sample of it to check the color. This can literally just be as simple as putting a straw in your tank, covering the top, and then pulling it back out. Sometimes they'll even spin the fuel filter and observe for obvious dyed fuel. Sometimes though, they'll take it even further and use a special black light that'll glow an obvious color, denoting dyed fuel was previously used in that vehicle. They'll put a light on the filter, the fuel tanks, and other areas they can easily access. If they see signs that red diesel was used, they can give you a ticket or a court date right then and there. Really, the government workers that can give you a ticket for this, or they can notify people who can give you a ticket for this, are addicted to the pay of tyrants. There's already enough taxes. There shouldn't be a road tax. There shouldn't be this fuel tax. The fact that red diesel fuel exists in the first place is crazy. The government has no incentive to spend money efficiently because all that money is literally stolen by force from citizens in the form of taxes. That's a bit of a topic for a different time, just wanted to get that out there. The red dye itself is a synthetic azo dye called Solvent Red 26, and it's the standard dye mandated by the US IRS to distinguish off-road fuel and clear road fuel. Solvent Red 26 is also mandated by the EPA for use in high sulfur diesel fuel. And that's where things get confusing, and where some people think the videos that they're seeing of people putting red fuel in their trucks is going to ruin their trucks. Modern fuel systems aren't designed for high sulfur diesel fuel, and high sulfur diesel fuel is dyed the same color as off-road diesel fuel. But that's not something you really need to worry about because nearly all, like about 99% of red dyed diesel in the US is chemically identical to the standard ultra low sulfur diesel that you'll find at the pump. The US switched the standard to ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel in 2006. So truck and equipment produced after 2006 are almost all designed to run on this ultra-low sulfur fuel. On the other hand, engines produced prior to 2006 were designed to use low sulfur fuel, with the difference between low sulfur fuel and ultra-low sulfur fuel being pretty big. For reference, ultra-low sulfur content is limited to 15 ppm, while low sulfur is limited to about 500 ppm, and high sulfur diesel contains more than 500 ppm. The switch from low sulfur fuel to ultra-low sulfur fuel makes a big difference on lubricity, with most of it being stripped away. However, this can be band-aided with a quality fuel. There is no special license required to sell red diesel, but the seller does have to be certified to carry it, which also means they're probably supposed to tell somebody if they see you pumping red fuel in your truck and then driving down the road. You can also get this fuel directly delivered to your farm, job site, or whatever you're doing that requires that fuel. It'll come directly from a fuel wholesale distributor who will deliver it to you, and sometimes they even offer services for renting their fuel tanks just in case you don't have a big fuel tank at your location. In some countries, their dyed fuel isn't red. There are countries out there with blue diesel, green diesel, and more. But they dye their fuel for the exact same reasons, which is to check who is and who isn't using it. We even have blue dyed diesel here in the US, but that's reserved for federal government fleets, so you definitely don't want to get caught with that in your truck, unless you feel like going to prison for stealing from the federal government. Jet A and Jet A1 fuel used in aircraft is close in chemical makeup to diesel fuel, and it's often dyed blue, green, red, and even purple. So that's our quick explanation of what red dyed diesel is, or cherry, or whatever you want to call it. It's the red diesel fuel that you'll find at some pumps across the US, not very many, but it's typically in rural areas, and it's designed for off-road use only. So that could literally just be off-road or equipment or tractors, anything that's basically not directly driving on the road, and it's taxed differently. It is still taxed depending on your state. It is still taxed, but it's with a rebate. So it's taxed at a lower rate, which means it's cheaper to buy, cheaper to use, but that tax that it's missing out on, the tax that it's rebated from, that tax is supposed to go towards building roads, bridges, and maintaining that kind of stuff. Whether or not that money is actually used to maintain roads and build roads, that's a topic for a different video. If you guys like this video, smash the thumbs up button. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought about this video. Let me know if you have a red diesel pump near you. I've personally never actually seen one, but I live in the middle of a big city, nowhere near anything rural, so there would be no reason for one to be near me. While you're down there, get subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos. Check out the other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.